In this video, I'm going to share some tips and tricks on a more efficient, more accurate way of breaking down your sheet goods, and hopefully it'll help you in your own shop. So in breaking down sheet goods, the important thing to remember is that you want to do this in a process, right? Because if you're breaking down sheet goods for multiple projects, say you're doing multiple cabinets, you're going to be doing a lot of the same thing over and over and over again. So the best way to go about this is to do things in a specific order, right? So an example of what I'm talking about is I have a full 4x8 sheet of plywood here. I know that I'm going to build, 7 cabinets. So what I want to do first is I want to make sure I'm making all of my rip cuts first, right? I'm going to break down this large sheet into more manageable pieces, and then I'm going to take them and start cross-cutting everything. So what do? We go ahead and we take our track saw and we just measure off the edge and make the cut. Well, no. One thing that's very important is we always want to make sure that we start with a clean reference edge. Everything in breaking down sheet goods is always related to a reference edge. The first cut you make, all subsequent cuts come off of that reference edge. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to trim off a little bit. And you might be saying, well, why? That's wasting material, right? Well, I'm going to cut off about 5 or 6 millimeters of this material, but that's important because the factory edges on plywood are not great starting points, right? They may be straight, but they're rough. They're not suitable for edge banding in most cases. So we want to go ahead and remove that. So we're just taking off a little bit of material, enough to make sure we maintain good dust collection, but we're going to trim that off, and that is where we will start making all of our subsequent cuts. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my rail, make sure I have a nice distance here that I want to go ahead and cut off. Double check again down here, make sure I'm where I need to be, and we're good. So we'll go ahead and get hooked up and make this first cut. All right, we got everything hooked up. Go ahead and make this first cut, ensuring that I plunge fully off of the sheet. All right, I've got my nice, clean reference edge, and that's where we're going to go from here. Now, there's a couple of different things that you can do at this point, right? So let's say that we need a piece that is 15 3/4 of an inch wide. A couple things you can do. You can take your tape measure, and you can take your pencil, and you can mark it down here, and you can mark it down on the other end, and then line up the track and make your cut. However, obviously you're incorporating a little bit of human error possibility into that. And so that's where something like parallel guides is going to come into play. And this is important because, like I said, I have 7 cabinets that I need to cut down. So why would I sit there and measure every time? Why not use something that's going to guarantee me accuracy and repeatability over and over again, and I don't have to pull out that tape measure? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this track, and we'll go ahead and bring out the parallel guides. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and slide these into place. And again, remember, we have this clean reference edge. That's what these are going to butt up against. So I've got it down here. And we'll go ahead, slide it up against there. It's in nice and tight. And I'm ready to go ahead and make my cut at the width. So again, a great benefit to having these parallel guides is if I know I have multiple cuts, all I have to do without measuring anything is butt these up against the material and make my cut. So let's go ahead and make this second cut. All right, we're going to go ahead and make our next cut. All right, so we got our cut complete. We can go ahead and move these out of the way. And I'm ready to go ahead and take my first piece. Now again, the big thing I want to highlight, if you're doing multiple ones of these, you're just going to finish doing every single one, set these off to the side, but make sure you always remember what your reference edge is. For me, this is going to be my starting side. So something you can do is just go ahead, put a mark just so you can remember what side was your reference edge. So now we're going to go ahead and take this and we're going to move over to our cross-cutting station so we can go through that process. All right, it's time to go ahead and start cross-cutting everything. We ripped everything first. We know what our measurements are, how long our panels need to be. So now let's go ahead and get everything cross-cut. And so what we want to do here, again, I want to reiterate, my reference edge is right here, and in this scenario, I'm using this table in order to cross-cut everything. That reference edge is going to be referenced up against the fence, because the fence is what this is 90 degrees to. Now, one thing that I do want to make sure of, just like we cut off the factory edge on the long portion of the plywood, we do have this rough edge up at the top. So for this first cut, what I'm going to do, you'll notice that I have a stop right here. Well, that stop is set to the distance that I need this panel to be. I'm going to go just a little bit proud of that, only by a few millimeters, because I don't want to waste too much material. Now, once I do that, put this up against the fence, and I can go ahead and lower my rail. And again, I'm cutting this a little bit long on purpose. All cuts after this will not need this. So let's go ahead and cut this first panel to length. Now that we made that cut, we can go ahead and have our off-cut piece. Just push it off to the side right now. Go ahead and raise up this rail here. And again, we now have a 90-degree edge to the reference edge. This is 90 degrees to this. So what do we need to do? Now let's flip this over, ensuring that that original reference edge is still up against that fence. And here's where we can use our stop. And I'm going to have my perfectly balanced panel after this, as well as get rid of that factory edge from the top. All right, and just like that, we've got our first piece cut. And go ahead and set this off to the side. And now every cut from here, I'm just simply sliding down to the stop. All right, got my second panel cut. Place this over here, and we'll just do a quick check just to make sure that we are square, and I'm getting the same exact measurement both ways. So the key things I want you to take away from this video is do things in a particular order. Establish a clean reference edge, make all of your rip cuts first, and then focus on doing all of your cross cuts. Take the time to set up your equipment to make sure that it's going to give you perfect results. Hopefully you find this information beneficial and it helps you in your next project.